So that makes some sense.
All right, so then there's this one I didn't even know about until you guys here as we were about to start the show. Dr. Susan Elza. Dr. Susan Elza, who has been running the massive system of what is the University Interscholastic League, the Texas League, or how they run their athletics, football, and all the way down to everything. She is on the verge of becoming the chief of staff, resigning as the athletic director of the UIL to become a part of Matt Rule's staff in Lincoln as he tries to continue to get his hands and also roots inside Texas. Already there's the Bob Wager hire from Arlington Martin, and then others, including Garrett McGuire, who was a part of the Carolina staff, and, of course, Joey's son. But also now Dr. Susan Elza. She's a Midway High School graduate, which is right here in Waco, Texas. And so that's kind of another outside-the-box move, which he's known to do at the college level.
Well, if you go back into, let's just take 95 Nebraska. I'm just going off the top of my head, and their best player was from Florida, right? So had to have some Florida recruiting in there. Some of their best defensive linemen were from California, right? And linebackers from California, DBs. And then some of their other better players were from Texas. So if you're going to succeed at Nebraska again, you've got to be able to sell that school in those three states, because at their pinnacle, at their absolute zenith of dominance, they were cherry-picking some of the best players in each of those states.
Yeah, no, that's what they could do. And that's what they're going to have to try to get back to do. And they pretty much, I know the thought about when they moved, Craig, to the Big Ten, that they lost their foothold in Texas. They still had some players from Texas, including most every year, but they're going to need more than just one or two players. They need the best players from every state, but this gives them yet another in where he was able to do that when he came here with the Sean Bell, David Wetzel, Joey McGuire hires, and when he came to Baylor from a guy that came out of the Northeast.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that was that's where he was based suddenly, was in Texas. He had no Texas ties, so he needed them. And so he got Joey McGuire, and he got, Sean Bell, and he got David Wetzel, as you mentioned. And now you're in a place where you don't have the backyard of Texas talent, and you do need to spread your wings and go all across the country. And when Nebraska was successful, that's what they did. Yeah, sure, you can go get your offensive line, your big corn-fed boys up there in Nebraska, certainly. But you do need some of that speed. And so you're going to Florida, and you're going to Texas, and you're going to California, and you're looking all around for, the best talent that you can possibly get. That's the name of the game in college football. Ohio State's surrounded by a lot of talent, but they dang sure come to Texas to find guys, to play wide receiver quite a bit, or running back, or quarterback. I mean, a lot of their better players you could put it, from Ohio State's roster, a lot of guys have come from Texas here over the last few years. So, yeah, there's an abundance of talent. And if you're a school like Nebraska, who's also going to have the advantages of, money that comes with that new TV deal and NIL and all of that, do everything you can to get as strong of a hand as you can when you come down to the Lone Star State. And, between his the capabilities they have because of, NIL and the Big Ten and just the marketing side of that, but also, starting up something brand new and having something that you can show from just a few years ago as far as the method to the madness and why the method works. He's got proof in the pudding from when he was at Baylor. He's got tons of connections. Now you're bringing in these very strong ties to the state of Texas. And so he's just working his magic, man. He's setting them up to be as attractive as possible to recruits, and especially from the state of Texas. And so I think he's succeeding in that. We'll see ultimately, on signing day next year, we'll see, some of the full impact of that. But no surprise. I mean, he's leaning on relationships that he built. And, I think it's smart.
All right, so those are some of the stories in college football. Brian Hartline has now been promoted to be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. This is as elite a recruiter as there is in the country. The wide receiver room is there, and he has a lot to do with that. And then how about Ole Miss today in getting, there you go, thanks, Garrett, Pete Golding, Alabama's defensive coordinator, who once was at UTSA, has now expected Bruce Feldman to become the new defensive coordinator at Ole Miss. He's 38 years old and one of the rising stars in the coaching profession.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. This is another year where Nick Saban is going to have to replace at least one coordinator. I think most people think that Bill O'Brien is going to leave too and try to get back to the NFL. So he would be technically replacing both coordinators there. So curious to see where he goes on this one. Which coach that's recently been fired could join the Nick Saban career rehabilitation program. Pete Golding certainly wasn't in that. That was kind of a different one. Pete Golding was a guy on the way up and still is and got to Alabama. So he wasn't someone who had, had success, then been a head coach, then not worked out where it was. So I wonder where Nick Saban will go with this. I mean, he pretty much – I don't think anybody like in the coaching profession is less stressed when a coordinator leaves than Nick Saban. I mean, he could just, all right, you're going to leave? All right, well, to the Rolodex I go.
Yeah, I mean, judging by the fan reaction that I've seen, some of it, they're celebrating in Tuscaloosa. They're fine with it. It's always like you brush it off, like, oh, we didn't care about that anyways, kind of a deal. So, take that for what it's worth. But that's been a large part of the reaction that I've seen was actually like, oh, great, now let's get Bill O'Brien out of here. That's basically what I saw when I was scanning around. Now, certainly there's some Ole Miss fans trying to dunk on Bama, like we took your guy, but. I think there's plenty of people that are like, okay, thank you for doing so. So I don't know. I'll leave it to the hardcore Bama fans to let us know what the real mood in Tuscaloosa is. So we'll rely on you for that. But it appears it's not like some massive, like Lane Kiffin just dunked on Saban and, hung around his neck. It seems like it's something that could actually be a big splash for Ole Miss in the headlines and make them better, but also be something that actually could work out for Alabama in the long run. We'll see on that. But, yeah, certainly when you saw that headline come across, it was like, whoa, wait a second here. And I've already seen the name. The one name I saw thrown around quite a bit was Jeremy Pruitt. As far as, where to look next. And I don't know how much scuttlebutt there is about that, but I'm just saying, like, that's the name under, like, the comments of, like, I saw that 2 or 3 times. But, Saban's got the Rolodex of all Rolodexes, and he'll find somebody that's absolutely worthwhile.
In the chat room, Jacob Guy, so happy Pete Golding is finally gone. Don't care who Alabama gets. It'll be better. How about, where's Jim Leonard?
Yeah, I mean, just waiting.
And that's just from Austin, Texas. Yeah, how about Dan Mullen as offensive coordinator and Jim Leonard as defensive coordinator? Then Alabama would be right there where they need to be.
Okay, I think people need to back off on, like, every time a coordinator position opens up, people say Dan Mullen. Why is Dan Mullen not at Florida right now? Is it because Dan Mullen doesn't enjoy coaching in games? No. It's because Dan Mullen
didn't like to recruit,
was kind of over recruiting. And he is, I'll tell you, pretty dang good on TV.
No, he was really good as an analyst when he came in.
So,
I agree.
I think that Dan Mullen might be like, look, I can make money and even more as he moves up the ladder there as an analyst on television, being really, really good and not have to deal with NIL and all this other stuff. And, Alabama's not going to bring on a coach who is not totally invested in recruiting. And so, because they have to now, again, keep pace with Georgia as opposed to Georgia keeping pace with them. So, they're going to, whoever it is going to be probably a bit of a better recruiter.
Guess who Nick Saban can get? Pretty much whoever.
Whoever he wants. I mean, it's all going to be. I don't know where he would be in the pecking order, but it's like Paul said. I mean, he could sit back for the next year or two and still do the TV thing and be wildly successful with that, and wait for a different type of opportunity. It just depends. What does he want to do?
Yeah.
Like that's oftentimes when the rumor mill kicks up. It's like, what about this guy? What about this guy? I love the throwing around of names and all that, but I ultimately do settle on two of. Does the guy want to coach? Is his goal to be a head coach sooner rather than later? Yep. Or is his goal to be a TV guy? Or is his goal to be like, I just need my foot back in the door however I can get it in there? Well, clearly with Dan Mullen, he's probably had some opportunities to walk through some doors, and so far he's obviously said no. Now, would Alabama be a different story? I don't know, and I don't know enough of the details about how, like if they would even mesh, you know what I mean? But, he's got some options. He doesn't have to go straight to the Saban school of rehabbing coaches or whatever you want to call it. But I think that's an interesting name to throw out there. Obviously, there's a lot of others, and I mentioned Jeremy Pruitt. I saw his name thrown out there, but Alabama on the lookout for a D coordinator. That should be a fun little search.
And if there's a coach who's in need of Nick Saban's career rehabilitation school, it is. I mean, he's already been in Alabama. He's already been with Saban before, but it is certainly Jeremy Pruitt.
So there's a young man that plays